All right, get this. We're diving into a story that has it all: a fiery furnace, wild beasts that suddenly turn tame, and a vial of ancient blood that, believe it or not, still turns to liquid today. This is the story of the unyielding fountain, the absolutely incredible parable of St. Januarius.
So, to really get this, you've got to put yourself there. I want you to imagine the bustling, sun-baked streets of a Roman city. You can hear the noise of the market, but then you also hear that heavy, clanking sound of imperial soldiers marching. Yeah, we're in the Roman Empire, and not during the good times. This is under the reign of Emperor Diocletian, a truly merciless time to be a Christian. I mean, just having faith could get you killed.
Okay, so right in the middle of all that darkness and oppression, we meet our guy, a young bishop named Janarius. And for his community in the city of Benevento, he was so much more than just a leader. He was, quite literally, their lifeline.
You know, his community actually had this amazing name for him. They called him a living fountain. And what a perfect metaphor, right? He wasn't just giving sermons, he was this constant, overflowing source of comfort and hope. So when the emperor's decrees started landing his followers in prison, what do you think Januarius did? He didn't run. Nope. He walked straight into the lion's den, you could say, to minister to them, fueled by what they called the eternal spring of his faith.
Well, you can probably guess that this kind of bravery didn't go unnoticed by the Romans. I mean, of course not. They captured Januarius, and they were dead set on shutting down this fountain of faith for good. And what came next? It was a series of trials designed not just to kill him, but to humiliate him and make a massive public spectacle out of it. So first up, they threw him into a blazing furnace. The idea was to just consume him instantly. But the story goes that the flames literally parted around him, like a curtain, and left him completely untouched. As you can imagine, his persecutors were furious, so they dragged him to an amphitheater and let loose the wild beasts. But then, it happened again, something absolutely incredible. The lions, the bears, they all just grew calm and refused to attack him. Just, wow. So they're completely defeated by these miracles, right? They can't seem to break his spirit. So the Romans fall back on the one thing they know will always work. But here's the twist. This final brutal act wasn't an end at all. It was actually the beginning of a legacy that would echo for thousands of years. Januarius was beheaded. But his death, it wasn't seen as just an execution. It was more like a planting. His blood became what's called a crimson seed, and it sowed a story of faith and sacrifice that people would tell for centuries. And honestly, this is where the story gets really, really fascinating. Right after his death, a devout woman, her name was Eusebia, she did something incredible. She gathered some of his blood, and she carefully sealed it into 2 small glass vials. And with that one simple act of devotion, she transformed the physical remains of a terrible tragedy into a sacred relic. It became this tangible, physical link for the people of Naples to the bishop who had given his life for them. Okay, now let's hit the fast-forward button. We're jumping forward through the centuries. Those little vials of blood, they were kept safe in the Grand Cathedral of Naples, and they became the center of a phenomenon that, well, it still kind of defies any easy explanation. Now, the source material uses this really interesting phrase, a thixotropic memory. Thixotropy is a real thing, a scientific property. It's when a gel-like substance turns liquid when you shake it or stress it, and then goes solid again when you let it sit still. The best example? Ketchup. You know how you have to smack the bottle to get it to flow? That's thixotropy. And that's the scientific lens some people try to use to explain what happens next. So, as you'd expect, over hundreds and hundreds of years, the blood dried up. It congealed into this dark, solid mass inside the vials. It was this stark, physical reminder of a really violent death that happened so long ago. Basically, a memory of a distant tragedy, but instead of being set in stone, it was set in dried blood. But here is the absolute core of the miracle. On certain holy days, specifically the ones honoring St. Januarius himself, something totally extraordinary happens. As people gather and pray, that solid, dried-out blood inside the vial, it starts to stir. It changes, and it actually returns to a liquid state. Sometimes it even bubbles. It's like the memory isn't distant anymore. It's suddenly alive and right there in the present. This event, which happens over and over again, is famously known as the miracle of San Gennaro. San Gennaro is just the Italian name for Januarius, by the way. And this happens multiple times a year. It's a huge deal in Naples, a total cornerstone of their faith and culture. But this raises a huge question, right? What does it actually mean when the blood liquefies? And maybe more importantly, what does it mean when it doesn't?
And this is where the story gets even more compelling. Because, you see, the event itself is one thing, but how people interpret it, that's a whole other story. Over the centuries, two main ideas have really popped up about what the state of this relic actually means. So you've got these two dominant views, and they're pretty much polar opposites. On one side, you have what's called the silent omen. The idea here is that if the blood fails to liquefy, it's a terrible sign for the city of Naples. It's seen as a forecast for disaster, plagues, wars, you name it. But then there's this other, deeper spiritual lesson that also emerged. This view sees the relic as a living sign. It's not some magic 8-ball predicting the future. It's more like a compass, always pointing towards goodness and reminding people that love can triumph over death. And this, right here, is what the wise elders in the stories say is the central lesson. They taught that getting all worked up about whether the blood turns liquid or not, well, it completely misses the point. The real miracle isn't some strange chemical reaction in a vial. The true miracle was the life of Januarius himself, his absolute unwavering commitment to love and goodness, even when he was facing down pure terror. And so that leaves us with this final, really powerful question to think about. This whole story of St. Januarius kind of forces us to ask, where does a miracle really live? Is it in the strange, unexplainable physical event happening inside a glass vial? Or is it in the incredible, unwavering human faith that a story like this can inspire for almost 2,000 years? Maybe the answer to that is a matter of faith itself.